Good morning. Welcome to Coffee Talk. It is Monday. It's Monday. Oh my. February 17th, 2025. We are past the halfway mark into the second month of 2025. Uh, this morning's going to take a lot of coffee. We got another snowstorm coming toward Arkansas. So we've been snowed in once, and it was snow, not ice snow. It was like a real 10 inches of snow. And if you, for those of you that are not from the South, this is your time to make fun of us. Just the mention of possible snow in the forecast means schools will close, grocery stores will go empty, liquor stores will also go empty, which brings me to my shirt. For those of you that are not watching this video as the playback, if you happen to be listening to this on Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, podcast, anywhere you may be listening to this thing, and you can't see, I am wearing my Whiskey, the Breakfast of Champions sweatshirt. I wore this sweatshirt in another episode a while back. Got an email this past week that someone that wanted to just help me and give me advice because that's how this industry works. People are so helpful and they want to give you helpful advice that they wanted me to know that my shirt or my sweatshirt was very unprofessional for a woman in the industry doing a podcast about collision repair. And so right away I was like, yeah, you're not from the industry originally, are you? If you don't know. So because the sweatshirt obviously caused some people some offense and some pause, I'm wearing it again today. I may wear it for the next month, like I don't know, or it may become like a theme. So yeah, I'm wearing my sweatshirt. If my sweatshirt is the only thing that offended you while watching a podcast, I'm clearly not doing my job fully and with the intent. So maybe I need to step it up a level. I don't know. But let's get going this morning because I know wherever or however you're listening, you got things to do and it's not sitting around all day and just listening to me go on and on. So I promised you for this year, I was going to talk a lot about the insurance industry and what's going on that side of the fence. Too often, I believe as collision repairers or people in the repair side of this business, we get fixated on a certain aspect or a certain perspective, and we lose the focus of that. What we do, collision repair, automotive repair, is a very small fraction of this bigger picture of P&C insurance and what's going on in their world and what they're dealing with. It's why you don't see the really important people in the insurance industry, the ones that actually make decisions, going to our industry events. We usually get somebody from the physical damage department, and that's like the redheaded stepchild of insurance. They were the first ones to lose salary and status and lots of things. So we're going to talk about what's going on in the insurance world frequently, just so that you're up to date. The AM Best Report, we got that report first part of the month. And it was going through, basically they rate the solvency or the financial health of insurance companies. And we had 13 new companies be marked as impaired. What that means is they're financially teetering. They're at risk of not being able to pay their debts. And then the next step of impaired is actually insolvency, and then liquidation goes from there. We have 5 carriers, or we have 10 carriers that were placed on the insolvent and liquidation list. 5 of those are there because of cited catastrophe losses. Those are Midwestern companies. Cat claims got the best of them. It's one of those things where we always say we can plan for a cat here and there, but if we have a horrible season where multiple cats across multiple states are affected and they're not isolated to a particular area, those can become extremely expensive. There have been years in my cat history where we've had bad losses on opposite ends of the country and just fluke things, a fire in California and a Hurricane Andrew down out in Florida or whatever. So those things happen. And then we have 4 of those on the insolvency and liquidation list that say they're there because of automotive claims. So private passenger auto, not commercial auto, not any of those, but private passenger auto claims. Claims costs are increasing as frequency is decreasing. And that's a very interesting place to be and maintaining your solvency, a lot of it is on expenses, not necessarily just on the expenses of paid claims, but are you managing those people properly, and do you have the proper assets to do the right job and do the right thing, which we're going to get to probably in our next story that really, really, really entertains me greatly. So if you believe, which is I think probably 99% of the collision repair space, if you believe that your revenue is tied to or through an insurer, I would love for you to say, I charge the customer, doesn't matter. Here's my bill to fix the car. I don't care who's paying me, somebody's paying me. If that was your focus of your business, and we all were that way, well, we would not have gotten to where we are today. But for those of you that are still very dependent on an insurance company check, I always say if your business depends on a check showing up at your shop with an insurance company's name in the little upper left-hand corner, then you need to be very aware of that process, everything over there, what they're dealing with, what they're talking about, what they're researching, what they're testing, how claims works. You need to be familiar with that. I saw a little blurb some people started sending me through CIC. They know how I feel about that event, which I'll also cover later. But uh, it was a person in the industry talking about what it would take what it takes to make a good estimator. I'm always fascinated that the people that have an opinion on what it takes to make a good estimator have never actually produced and made estimators continually over and over and over, researched it, studied, done anything. We just have a bunch of people sitting out with opinions. And that person's opinion was, well, what makes a good estimator is get them out in the shop, show them how to fix a car, let them learn everything about it. And we know scientifically proven in research after research that that makes the worst estimator. Like what we want them to do is we want them to understand this whole claims process, how claims are reviewed, paid, what insurance does and doesn't do. And then that helps you have the conversation with the vehicle owner. Ultimately, that's your customer. They're the ones that have to sign off on your repair plan, if we want to use that language. And they've got to advocate for themselves. You can't do it, right? Like I can't take over. I wish, everybody loves, we talked about assignment of proceeds. I think this last past week in the Ask Kristen little shorts, we all want to try to find a way to do it for them. That's kind of where this industry went in the early 90s, is just, okay, customer, you go over and stand over here. We're going to take care of all these problems for you. But we're just not there yet. So if you want to have a 2025 that doesn't make you want to quit, we have a lot of the chest bangers in this industry that have want to run around the country and tell you that they're the best and you should follow them and they're perfect shops and they're going to teach you how to do this and that, and just give them more money and whatever. They're all selling their shops because this is such a difficult time right now to be a shop and to try to get paid for simple things. Like it's not even, I joke around, it's not even like you're trying to get paid for a Larry estimate. Those are hard, right? The 4 car washes, all the extra stuff, the touch-up paint, everything that he writes for, that's a tough negotiation. You better have a PhD in negotiations if you're going to get paid a Larry estimate. But right now, shops are having a hard time getting things that are just plainly obvious. Like, here's a picture of the part that's broke, and here's me wanting to replace it. It seems like we're in La La Land, which we're also going to cover today while we're in La La. This is going to be my favorite episode, I think. Not just because of the shirt. That's a good reason too, but it's going to be my favorite episode for lots of other reasons. But learn that side of the fence. If you were a sports person, we'll talk football because my life seems to revolve around football until my kid finally picks where he's going to go to college. But if you were going to get prepared for the Super Bowl, I just saw an interview with Saquon Barkley talking about his preparation routine for the Super Bowl. He watched hours and hours and hours of film on the other team. That's how you build a winning game plan, is you scout them, you watch them, you do whatever. Same thing goes in business, right? If that's your, I don't want to say you're competitive or your competitor, but if that's the person that you need to beat or change the mind to get paid, then you better understand what's going on that side of the fence. So, all right, this one's funny. I just want to share it because it's for a couple of reasons. So this article came out last week, February 10th, from the Wall Street Journal. a story about artificial intelligence and its use in the insurance industry. And so the chief information officer, the CIO of Allstate, did this interview, Wall Street Journal, talking about AI. A couple of things caught my eye. First, because sometimes our friends over at Aztec have a hard time understanding slides and what they are. On the right-hand side of your screen is excerpts from the article. So I put little black frames around them so everyone can understand what that is. And at the bottom there is a list of corrections. It's going to be important here in a minute when we get to that discussion. But when this first came out, the article said that Allstate had 15,000 insurance reps, and I just about spit my coffee out. That's a low number for those in, on the podcast that are from that insurance side of the fence, and you think about your claims operations of a top five carrier. That 15,000 is a very, very low number and makes you go, uh-oh, that seems, maybe some of the chaos makes a little sense now. There was a correction to that. So Allstate has 23,000 insurance reps. That's really not a lot of people when you think about claim volume. It is deteriorating, but claim volume is still there. However, what we call FTE, full-time employment, is a huge chunk of the budget, not just for salary, but for benefits and everything else that goes with that. So if I want to reduce expenses to improve profitability, reduction in force is a good way, fast. I won't say good way, but maybe a faster way to do that. So they got 23,000 reps and they send out 50,000 communications a day. That's written communication, email. It's not phone calls. It's 50,000 written pieces of communication, email, actually real mail, which is still a viable part of doing business. I think people freak out when I tell them to send certified or registered mail. They're just like, I can go to the post office and do what? Yeah, but it still exists. The mail rooms of insurance industries are not as big of operations as they used to be, but there is still a mail room that happens. But they're sending out 50,000 communications a day. So sidebar one, body shops, you should be sending out lots of communications. Every phone call should be followed up by an email. You should be sending email, written correspondence to your customers. I'm okay with some text messaging. But it's just not the way that we want to communicate when we're going to have to like print stuff up for court, which becomes another issue later. So I thought that was interesting. And what they're basically doing at Allstate is they've started using artificial intelligence to have empathy for their consumers. Let's just take a sip of coffee on that one. The people you've hired that are answering the phone, that are saying, "Hi, this is Kristen with X Insurance Company. How may I help you?" are incapable of expressing and communicating empathy to the people that pay their salary. And so our solution, because we've cut the training department, right? They don't exist anymore. There used to be a great training department, and there was thousands of hours of training around how to be a decent human being in this industry. In fact, if you take my estimating course, or our independent adjuster course, there's over 100 hours. There's like 80 courses that are just communication, like how to say hello, how to answer the phone, how to write an email. But because all that disappeared, and of these 23,000, the turnover is incredible, right? It's above 80%. It's very rare you encounter somebody in claims that's got multiple years of experience. For the most part, people, quit this job very early. I had a friend of mine explaining to me that's in HR for one of the insurers. She's like, well, Kristen, we have a plus 80% turnover. We hire people in bulk. So we'll hire maybe, let's say, 10 adjusters this week. And by the end of week one, half of those have quit. Most of those won't even tell us they quit. They just stop showing up for work. And then as we go through the next year, another like 4 of those will quit. And so we're left with 1 or 2 out of an original hire a year later. And I went, God, it's going to be hard. And my friend went, yeah, think of it this way. Those were the people that were too dumb to go get another job. Like they don't like it either. They just couldn't figure out where to go. So they're still here. Miserable, a lot of what they do. It's a rare bird that likes being an adjuster. I have that sign above my desk. Arguing with an adjuster is like wrestling with a pig in the mud. Eventually you realize the adjuster likes it. It's a rare breed that can do this job day in and day out, get yelled at, screamed at. and everybody hates you. Shops hate you. Customers hate you. Vendors hate you. Um, but anyway, so they've got this artificial intelligence that's writing the emails. Now there's still supposed to be an adjuster that peruses it, agrees that it's right, and send it off. But if my turnover is high and my morale is low, is anybody really going to read? Are they just firing it off? Now it's causing some stir, not just Allstate, but more. There's a whole thing going on LinkedIn right now where you have some people that are, I don't want to say they're influential, but they have a decent following on LinkedIn. Like they're not a name that anybody would recognize in the world. It's not like Taylor Swift or somebody like that's out there complaining about the letter they got. But these are long-term policyholders. We're talking people with plus 20 years of policy premium paid that are getting these AI written emails, and they're doing okay, but they're not doing great. And so some people are a little offended about the communication and the things that are being told to them in those communications. So that side of the fence is struggling with the personality. But here's where it gets funny. Now, CCC is mentioned in this article. With first print, it was a misprint, and they talked about Copart. So what I'm going to surmise, which is completely not in the article, but just from my experience, I'm going to guess that the CIO was talking about confusion over the total loss settlement process and communicating the CCC total loss report. Because in my mind, that's the only reason why I would have Copart mentioned and then have to issue a correction that they meant to say CCC. We know that those vendors, but under contract, which is super helpful. So I'm a fan of it. I'm not against it. But we know those two vendors, IAA and Copart, under contract. They condition cars on the tow in. So it's either the early tow in program or whatever, however that car gets there. Part of their deal is they go around and get the options and condition and all that. And that helps generate the total loss settlement report. However you feel about that. But apparently there was some confusion. I'm going to say the AI or the adjusters, well, I'm proud of the adjusters, weren't doing a good job of communicating this. And it causes a lot of confusion and hurt feelings. I used to tell my adjusters, please don't ever call a customer and tell them their car was average or below average or, whatever. Like, I get it. Some of these cars are a mess, but it's their car and it's theirs. And it's like me calling your baby ugly. Like, I don't walk up to you in Walmart and go, excuse me, ma'am, your kid is hideous. Like, did you birth that? Or, I don't do that. And it's kind of the same thing when we're settling total losses. I get some cars sent to me that I go, who intentionally bought this piece of, whatever. But they love it and it gets them to and from. So this was an interesting little article to talk about artificial intelligence, writing your emails, writing your correspondence. We have a couple of companies in our industry, whether it's Impactify or Voltonic, that are working to put artificial intelligence into a shop system. So a shop management system that then takes all of the facts of that RO and helps generate correspondence around it using ChatGPT. It's not like I'm not there and I don't have the money for that. So I have templates because that's how we used to do this in the insurance industry before there was like AI. We just had template letters that were in the claim system, and we told them, the adjusters, don't ever freeform a letter. And if you think you have to freeform a letter, it needs to come through management to be read before you hit send on that one. But I just keep a big stack of templates. And there's nothing new. I tell everybody I've been doing this. I've been doing this my whole life, right? Mom went into labor in the paint booth. I was born into the collision repair business. I have no other skills or nothing left or other things to offer this world. If this industry goes, I go. That's all the only thing is to it. But I've been using templates forever, like just a part of it. There's nothing new. I'm still answering the same questions in 2025 that I was answering in 2020 and that I was answering in 1995. It's still the same stuff comes up day after day. The names have changed a little bit, but the situations are still really the same. So I use those templates, copy paste, and it gives me a couple things. One, it ensures I never forget to say something because I get in a hurry. Those thumbs get to flying if I'm on the phone. It ensures that I never forget to say something, and then it ensures that I say things in the right way all the time. I don't let my emotions get in because I could be firing back and I could be really hot under the collar. I have a short temper and I'm petty. Those are my superpowers, I always tell people. but templates prevents me from putting my emotion in it. And I encourage shops to have templates because you're going to have different skill sets in your estimators. Some of your estimators will be great communicators and can write great emails and correspondence. Some of us aren't. And that's not our strength, but we were hired for other things. We're either great with a car or we're great with a customer or whatever, but hey, our grammar and spelling and all that's not on point. So templates, I, they're not hard to make your own template library, right? Like I said, we're all answering the same things day after day. If you don't have your own library, well, of course, I've got one I'll sell you. You can write in, we have a repairable template package and we have a total loss template package. And they're just emails that we've been sending for the last 15, 20 years that we just keep and we copy and paste and we keep reusing them. And we're happy to share those templates with you if you need them. All right, so let's get back to Allstate in this article. So this article was pretty interesting, and I perused through it, made sense. The quality of people that we hire aren't great anymore. Diagnosed mental disorders are up like 65% across that 34 and under demographic, which represents a lot of what our new hires are. People are short, people are angry, and that doesn't usually transfer into very empathetic claim process. We're not the only insurance industry isn't the only one struggling with this. Hospitals are struggling with it. I have a friend that runs a big hospital network. I think she's got like 700 clinics and like 20 hospital ERs, and they're struggling to get their people to be empathetic on things that are literally life threatening or life altering or life changing, right? So this is just a problem across the board. Found it interesting. So here is where it gets really interesting for me, and I'm going to warn you, right? Probably don't spit your coffee out on this one. So this is our CIO, our Chief Information Officer, does an interview with the Wall Street Journal. I think we can all agree that the Wall Street Journal is a very honored publication, a very serious publication. It's not like the CIO did an interview with me, right? That would be completely non-serious. But the Wall Street Journal, pretty serious. How screwy is internal public relations for an insurance company? Well, body shops, you think you get stupid change requests from insurance companies? You're not the only one. So this blog, right? They specialize in artificial intelligence. That's what they do. They saw the article and like me went, hey, that's a pretty interesting article in the way that maybe, could it really be that computers can be more empathetic to the human situation and the human mind and brain than an actual other human being? So they ran the article. And Allstate sent them a hey, take this article down request. Now I get really I find it interesting to me. Who people think they can, I don't want to say bully, that's not the right word, but you give yourself a false sense of importance. Like, well, we're a big company, we're super important, we have power. So you don't call the Wall Street Journal and go, hey, the blowback on this article isn't exactly what we thought it was. We thought people would be excited. People are questioning what's the wrong with your people. They don't have empathy. If they can't write an email, then how do they handle a claim fairly? Which is not an unfair leap, right? If you're telling me that they can't empathetically write an email to a consumer, then where's the empathy or that fiduciary responsibility, which is a fiduciary, I'm supposed to put the customer first over me and over the company. If I can't even send an email, could I handle a claim properly? So instead of going, hey, this blowback isn't what I'm right, well, they know the Wall Street Journal's not going to take it down, right? So they issued a change request to the Wall Street Journal for two mistakes that the CIO made. I don't believe it was a misprint by the Wall Street Journal. I believe it was a misquote. And so they issued those two. So if we go back, let me go back. If you go back to the bottom down here, if you're watching this, corrections and amplifications, it says Allstate has 23,000 insurance representatives and CCC Intelligent Solutions is the vendor the insurer uses for estimating the cost of repairs. An earlier version of this article incorrectly said that Allstate had 15,000 reps and identified the vendor as Copart. So Wall Street corrects two, I don't want to say minor. I mean, for us, and understanding what those are kind of, the Copart, the employee thing, the number of employees, not that big of a deal, but the vendor thing. So Wall Street Journal is a correction. But Allstate calls this or writes this publication and says, hey, take this down. Get, right. And they go, no, right. And then what's funnier to me is Allstate takes the time to make them a chart of all the things they want them to change. So this publication got a corrections request, like, or a change request, just like we get in the collision repair space. And they said that Futurism made an error. It's not an error. That's the straight quote from the CIO. And they go, here's your errors. Here is your corrections that we want you to make. And then here's the rationale for those corrections. And I'm just reading this and I feel like that Kermit meme, where you're just sipping the coffee and reading it. And I'm like, okay, first of all, Allstate's Allstate's public relations department needs some work. Like this wasn't really bright. I'm kind of baffled at this one. I have a couple of friends that hopefully are listening to this. They're actually PR people, that are probably the same as me going, what was that? Right. Yeah. Mm, mm. But from a body shop perspective, this one made me laugh out loud when it came out because I thought this is the same change request nonsense that we get into the collision repair space. So it's not just body shops that are being asked to do really dumb things by insurance companies, and it's not just the property side; it's also journalists. So we have people within a PR department of an insurer sending a really just odd change request. To another journalist, which is kind of interesting. So you can go on Futurism's blog and read the whole thing. Their exchange. They tried to go back and forth with Allstate on a couple of the why do you want this and please this, and they even said in the article that they felt like it was artificial intelligence responding to them because they never answered their question. Like they were asking specific questions, and the person within Allstate responding back to them was completely not answering the question and just kept reiterating the same things over and over. And so they finally just said, screw it, we're going to stop talking to them. And I thought, oh, if only Futurism would come and interview collision repair shops because they've got a lot to share of the same nonsense. Like I get this change request. The change request makes no sense. And I send back um, a heck no, we're not doing that kind of thing. And I don't get any intelligible human response whatsoever. So maybe it's artificial intelligence already that's responding to our supplements and emails, and we're not even within a human anymore. Okay, so this one also makes me laugh, right? Like I'm enjoying the hell out of this one. Last maybe a week or 2 weeks ago, I can't remember how far it was, but we talked about how one of the companies that Repairify Kinderhook had bought, which that's the parent company of Aztec, that one of the companies they had bought had filed a lawsuit about mismanagement, made all kinds of allegations within the suit. We published that. We published a link. You could go and download the filing of how realistically the management of Aztec had affected them negatively or whatever. And I found it very interesting that I thought, I didn't know you could sue yourself because basically they bought this company and then this company, so they own them, but they're suing themselves, so to speak. I found that very interesting. And then what do you know? Not even just like a week later, Kinderhook, VK Investments is the company that filed the lawsuit against Kinderhook and Repairify. But Repairify and Kinderhook file a motion to dismiss. Well, welcome to the world of lawsuits. Before you get to you want to try not to get to discovery and, kind of as you march toward the courtroom. So the first thing you do is you just file all these motions. Insurance companies are great at it, at filing motions. That's why a lot of like class action stuff it's hard to get those in the courtroom because of all the motions. That's why it's years too. But so they filed this motion to dismiss. And what do you know it? They basically said, hey, we can't sue ourselves, right? This company's a derivative of us. And so any of the benefits of a lawsuit would come to us anyway, and it would have to go through our board of directors. And we're not ever going to approve a lawsuit against us. So therefore, there's no lawsuit, which is kind of interesting. I was like, well, at least that's that part of you can't sue yourself. Now, to make sure that they understand very clearly, I have a jump cut in the story. All right. So if you're looking at this on the screen, there's a jump cut because I thought I'll just pull this in the bottom. So at the end, it basically claims that the person in charge of Aztec basically and Repairify systematically mismanaged it. There's a lot of accusations. You can go back and reread them. One of the interesting accusations was that the company was supporting these particular people's lifestyles. There was a home, a very expensive, large, and wonderful home in Florida that was technically owned, but the company was like renting it. So some way it's like, hey, I found a way to get a company to pay for my residence, but obviously the company's headquartered in Texas, and so having this big facility in Florida made no sense, except for there was one mention that there was a meeting at this residence in Florida at one time that took place. So um, in a way, I mean, I think those of us in the body shop industry know that just about every successful body shop owner has got a lake house and a boat and whatever, an RV, and they're all in the name of the company, right? That's why it's hard when a shop wants to go sell themselves. We have the experts in the industry all the time telling us that we have to, divest the business of personal assets, and then most of these shops aren't really aware of what the cost of ownership of all that's going to be, and it affects what their sale price. Like if you want to maintain your lifestyle, you're going to have to, when you sell this business, you're not going to have the ability to I guess title all of the stuff in the name of the business and use for write-offs or whatever. So anyway, not an uncommon practice. So I was I had talked in the blog or on the podcast about this Florida residence, and why couldn't I have ever figured that out, like how to get that stuff to happen, and when whether it's real and what happens. But then I started getting all these messages, which I found was very interesting. The messages coming in were basically telling me, "Hey, Kristen, wait till you find out about the Ferraris," and I'm like, "What Ferraris?" Right? Like it's not in the filing. So I have people, former employees, current employees, and they all had the same story about these Ferraris, which now I'm enthralled. I mean, so honestly, to me, this is kind of like a soap opera. It's like one of those. I never watched those, never got into those as a child. In my early days, we'll go back to the 90s, soap operas were a big thing. And so if you were in the company break room for lunch or whatever, there was always 4 or 5 people in there, and they took their lunch break around whatever soap opera, Days of Our Lives or whatever that was. So now I feel like this is kind of a soap opera, and I'm very invested in wondering and learning about the Ferraris. Like, I don't know if there really is Ferraris. I've never seen Ferraris. Like I back in probably 10 years ago or so, um, I had people that we still like, that used to work there that now work at other places. I never saw them driving Ferraris. But now I'm very, very interested and invested into where are the Ferraris? Is there one Ferrari? Are there multiple Ferraris? Does the company own Ferraris? Like I thought this was very interesting DMs and messages I was getting of oh, Kristen, wait, the houses are nothing. Wait till you find out about the Ferraris. So I'm anxiously awaiting the Ferraris. Anyone that has more information on the Ferraris, like I would like a Ferrari, but I can't put that on my company. I can't figure that one out. But if you if you know where the Ferraris are, let me know. So I think there's more coming on this story as it kind of continues to unravel, and it does feel like a Days of Our Lives kind of saga of what's going on over there with the leadership team, and I do remember the turnover wheel where it seemed like every year there was another leader of the company, and they kind of went through people. I got some messages last week as well, people writing me to tell me that their jobs had been posted, but they hadn't been fired yet. So they had already started to replace them. And then it took them like a week or so after the job had been posted to bring that person in and tell them that they were no longer with the company. And so those were some interesting emails. And I thought, it's gotta suck. You're out there searching. I don't know. You're searching Indeed to try to find yourself a new job, but you realize that your job's already been posted. That's kind of weird. I don't know. Like I said, I'm now thoroughly invested in this story to see if anything pops up about Ferraris at any time. So if anyone knows anything about the Ferraris, I'm now just have to know. I'm not a Ferrari fan. I'm a Porsche fan. That's kind of the dream car I want to own. But I find this story now, there's a lot to, I just really want to sit down one day and have a drink, or a cup of coffee with Geico and go, how did you get involved in this circus? I mean, like, really, of all of the companies that you wanted to entrust your brand, your reputation, your customers with, you chose this one. Like there has to be, maybe that story is better than the story of where are the Ferraris. So I don't know. And the Ferraris could be completely untrue. It could just be somebody trying to. grab my attention with something flashy. We will never, ever know. All right, what's next on the list this morning to talk about? Well, we got an association back at it with a really, look, should I be politically correct and nice? I'm probably not. That's not really my strong suit. This is one of the dumbest bills I've read in a very, very long time. And I'm really hoping that somebody over there changes their mind before this one is pushed further down the line. A lot of times you will start with a great piece of legislation in mind. And as you move it through different areas of the House or committees or whatever, people suggest that you make changes to that bill so that other people can get behind it or that certain objections can be removed in hearings. And the hardest thing about passing a bill is that when you go through hearings, you're going to have people are going to come in and give testimony, and traditionally shops go and give testimony. And I keep saying, please stop. A shop owner is not who I want in front of a committee within any state's legislature giving testimony. But anyway, these shop people show up and give testimony. And then the insurance people bring in lobbyists, economists. They bring in all these different people to do their. So I'm going to say that probably this bill started differently. And then through time, there were some modifications and changes made. And at the end of the day, this happens in all legislation, but what is the thing you're actually trying to push across the finish line? And then does it make the industry better or does it make it worse for shops because of all the changes and modifications that you did? And so this one, it makes no sense. Like whatever, for whatever reason, the changes or what this was done, it's just got to get killed. This one's got to not go anywhere. So basically, the bill will require OEM procedures, except for two little caveats. One, parts. Two, ADAS tools and equipment and calibration. So that's going to be your targeting. That's your scan tools. That's those things. All right, let me explain why this doesn't make sense. And I think all of you right now are probably going, yeah, that doesn't make sense at all either, Kristen. Okay, so let's look at it in a couple of different ways. One, we have a rule book, and that book is a singular book. It's not multiple books. There is one singular book, and that's called the OEM procedures. That's how we fix a vehicle. Those are the engineering, researched, fact-based, documented. Sometimes what the OE says makes me go, huh? But they're the OE. They made the car. They know more about it than I do. So here's the rule book. All right, so I have a singular rule book. And basically what this bill is saying, okay, the book says we should do three things. Two of them we're going to say no to. One of them we want you to pay us for. I don't even know how I would sit down and look at a customer, much less an insurer, and say, okay, there's these three things I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going to scrap two of them, but you're going to have to pay me for the one. That makes no sense. If the book is the book and it is a singular book, if one of them you're not going to do, then none of them you're not going to do. Pretty simple, right? If we talk about in law, we talk about the fruit of the tree or whatever is, if if these things are true, if this book of repair procedures and processes is true, and we're going to look at it and show, yeah, it's true. Yeah. Okay, if this book is true, then either everything in it is true or nothing is in it is true. There's not, it's like being a little pregnant. Those two things don't exist, right? And the two things that we're choosing to make an exception on are super critical. I'm going to go back. I don't know, somebody chime in on the comments or whatever after this thing broadcast and tell me specifically. But 12, 15 years ago, there was this big hoopla in the industry about aftermarket parts. And back then, you had a large contingent of the aftermarket part industry, the people that sold parts and manufactured parts, and they would come to CIC, and they were very active financially, and then also within committees, speaking, et cetera. And there's some great people. Like I have a very great friend that was on that side. Just think the world of her. She's super intelligent. I have a couple of people over there, like Stacy Bartnick's there, Karen Fierce is there. Just really super intelligent people that are good people. I don't like your parts, but I think you're good people, right? So there was this big debate that started. And we had an industry person who I also have a lot of respect for. His name was Toby Chess. And his committee within CIC did a presentation uh, showing the difference between an OE part and an aftermarket part. It was a very dramatic demonstration, basically a Sawzall blade. I could cut through the aftermarket part like butter. I could not cut through the OE part. Um, we're just basically a presentation of these two things are not the same. And so it sparked some really cool things. Ford Motor Company was at the front end of this. They produced a video with a gentleman by the name of Larry Cohen, who's awesome, whose brother was at Mob Steel. But on aftermarket parts and what they are and how Ford sees them and kind of things. And then LKQ got really mad, and LKQ got their attorney to threaten Toby with a lawsuit. Basically, if you do one more presentation, we're going to sue your pants off. Now, I got really mad. So everybody goes, why are you so mad at associations in the industry, Kristen? Well, this is one of the reasons. Nobody stood up for Toby. My company was so brand new right then. Uh, and I'm kind of over here screaming, yeah, this is awesome. Um, the industry didn't chip in and go, all right, Toby, this is important. You should do it. And if they sue you, we're behind you and we'll defend you. I mean, Toby had a family. And so, I mean, he very, I would say intelligently, never did another presentation about aftermarket parts. But the reason that they're important and part of what Ford was saying and what people have to understand is we talked about it last week. A car is nothing more than a math problem. That's all it is. And collision repair is a math problem to solve. Each part of a car on its own is worthless. We pick up a frame rail, a rail end or whatever, super light. I could throw it across the shop like a football field, and you're kind of holding this little part and going, how the hell is this live die? And the answer is it's not, right? Like it's how that part attaches to the next part that attaches to the next part. The strength or weakness, because we want cars to be soft, we want them to absorb damage. But the strength in vehicle design is in how each of those parts interconnect to do a singular function, which is perform in a collision. And that OE designs those parts very, very specifically with very, very specific parameters and very, very specific materials involved in those. And each of those is a math problem. So each one of those parts has their own algorithm or their own formula, and then you attach it to that, and it's like stringing your math problem along. That's what it is. By itself, weak. That's why when aftermarket, they don't crash test parts, they do what's called a crush test. And so I imagine you could probably go search Google and find this old video from Ford where it shows a crush test versus a crash test. OE's crash test vehicles, because they have to, they go over to NHTSA and they crash them, and we can watch those videos for free online. But parts manufacturers do crush testing. In other words, how much force does this part take before it fails? And is that amount of direct force or crush force the same as the OE or relatively comparative or whatever? We can't test aftermarket parts like of all the different combinations, right? So imagine I've got a crash test of performance that's an OE bumper cover with an OE reinforcement connected to an OE lower rail. But you change the bumper or you change the reinforcement or you use OE on the other two, but you change like there's so many different combinations of determining if I put this aftermarket part in here, does it make it weaker? And we know because Honda made some really, really great videos on airbag timing. It's a catastrophic result if the airbag goes off too soon, just like it is a catastrophic result if the airbag goes off too late, right? It's, injuries. So this is a math problem. So to have a bill that says it's okay to not do the math makes no sense to me. Like parts are super important. Like nothing else works. I don't care if you weld the quarter panel on correctly if these three other things aren't right. Like if the whole algorithm of the car is like Legos, one thing stacking on the top of the other, and you're going to change one of the things in that stack, then what does it matter what else you do to the car? I mean, if you're going to throw in all these alternative parts, well, screw it, just glue it on and let's roll it down the road and figure it out later. Like that doesn't make no sense to me whatsoever. And then if we had to think of something as safety involved and safety critical as ADAS and all of the lawsuits that we have going on around ADAS and ADAS performance right now, you're going to completely ignore what the OE says on that. So why even have a bill? I don't get the purpose of this bill. Are we literally thinking that we want to make insurance companies pay us for procedures, but we're not going to use the right ingredients, and then we're not going to do the calibrations and the final road testing and all of that right either? So what's the point of the middle? If the beginning and the end are not going to be per the book, then why do anything in the middle per the book? That just makes no sense to me. And if you're acknowledging the importance of the OE procedures, but then you're not going to follow them, it seems like you're opening the collision repair shops of Illinois up to a lot more liability by having this bill than by not having it at all, because I don't see where it does anything. I think this industry has lost sight of the fact that collision repair is a math problem. It's an algorithm, and the engineers have certain knowns. So these things are our knowns: the material makeup, the strength, the tensile strength. We have all of these knowns so that I can write a formula that makes my bags deploy at a certain time, that makes my claim mitigation braking work at a certain way. It makes all these things work. And then we're going to throw two of them out. It's kind of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater kind of mentality. Probably this was a bill that started with other intentions, and different lobbyists and different people said, let's do this, or let's change this, or let's noodle this. And they're so focused on getting across the finish line with a bill that no one stopped to say, do we even really want this bill? Is this good for consumers? But is it also good for us? This, honestly, folks, this is a bad bill for consumers, because you're legalizing an insurer not having to follow the rule book. You're telling them it's okay to not follow the rules, that not just like for policy, like I don't care what a policy pays or doesn't pay. That's a contract negotiation, right? That's not body shop world. But you're basically giving them permission to do what they've been doing for the last 30 years, which is not follow the OE, right? You're agreeing with them with this bill. So we got to think about that. If you're in a state that has an association that's presenting bills to your legislature, you need to look at them really honestly. Do not just push forward with something because I get it sucks right now. It's super hard, and everybody's struggling for money, and everybody's just struggling in general right now. But don't let the desire to get a win, to push something across the finish line, have you push something across the finish line that's just bad for all the parties involved. All right, this one's funny. Often hear when some of these bills, when some of this legislation and some of this stuff is coming out, that, well, Kristen, it's all about common sense. And I go, Jesus Christ, when's the last time you've ever actually worked in the collision repair industry if you mention the words common sense together in a sentence, right? So the meaning being that we should be able to have a meeting of the minds, right? The shop and the insurance company should be able to get together, and they should be able to talk things out, and that's going to lead whatever. This is my favorite thing. I'm almost out of coffee. We got to wrap this video up. But my favorite thing is when there's some idiot consultant in the industry that wants to tell a shop that the way to negotiate and get paid is to make line notes on your estimate of the procedures. And I'm thinking, well, dumbass, if showing the procedures got us paid, we'd all been paid from the 90s going forward, but nobody's still getting paid. So clearly that's not an effective negotiation strategy. But this popped up, and man, I just about lost it. After failing, so this is posted on the Claims Adjuster Network, which is a group within Facebook. So you had this lady come in here and post, after failing my exam 5 times, I finally passed. So 6 times, third time's not the charm. Apparently the 6th time is the charm. So after failing my exam 5 times, I finally passed, and I got a job offer from Geico. Holy donuts. So when I started in claims, and I'm going to go back glory years because I feel like a boomer right now, because I went to school in the snow and rain, uphill both ways, walked, no shoes, no socks, whatever the whole thing is. But so when I went to claim school, it was long. It was 2 or 3 weeks. I can't remember the full length of it. I was there for 2 months. I did all my schools back to back to back to back. But claim school is 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's policy, it's law. But anyway, if you failed a test, not the class, right? Like it wasn't like into class, into the 2 weeks, and your test average had to be above a certain whatever. If you failed a test, you were gone. You were terminated. Like they packed your bags, they bought you a plane ticket, and you were done right in the middle of it. I'm not sure if you drove to class in a company pool car, like if you were allowed to drive back home, or whether they stranded the pool car at corporate and you had to fly out. But that was how serious of a profession it was, and that was how serious the insurance industry was about having professionals in those jobs. They knew the human toll, they knew the gravity of the decisions that were being made, the effect of the decisions that were being made. And so there was always best foot forward, or the best people in the job, period. That's who got the job. Who you're dealing with now is none of that. And it's why I tell people getting paid on claims has very little to do with the factual need or basing. It's just a human trying to get another human being to make a decision. And that human is not the brightest bulb on the tree. It's not the cream of the crop anymore. So you think about turnover and how fast and how many adjusters and the level of what we're dealing with, what they call processing. So there's claims processors, and then there's real claims people. We usually call those complex claims people. These processors, they look at them more like an admin. No real skills, no real profession, going to churn and burn through them, no big deal. 5 times. This isn't a hard test, people. I mean, like, it's basically spell your name in the bubble and fill in the bubbles with a number 2 pencil. But this is not a hard test. If you failed this test 5 times, if you failed it once, there's a problem. Much less twice, there's a problem. But 5 times to fail it, on the 6th time, finally passes it, and now they're going to be a Geico adjuster that you guys are going to have to deal with. That's just the picture of what we're talking about. So when someone tells you to copy and paste OE repair procedures and put them on your estimate, or they tell you to take 5,000 detailed pictures, or they tell you to do a complete teardown and write an estimate. Yeah, all that's just stupid. It just is. I mean, we know for a fact that on average, only 5 photos are reviewed per claim by an adjuster. Stop attaching so many photos. Stop doing all of this work that you think, like you put all of your time and effort in building what you believe is, our buddy Mark Olson used to say the bulletproof file. Even he's now like, yep, that was stupid. I don't know why I was on, but we're putting together this file, but you're handing this file across the table to someone completely polar opposite and different from you. So while that file makes complete and total sense to you, it seems logical to you why there is no reason anyone should say no to anything that's in this masterpiece, this bulletproof file that you created. You hand it across to somebody that doesn't speak your language. It's like me writing an estimate in French and having all of my documentation in French, and then, handing it to somebody that doesn't speak French. Like, that's literally exactly what you're doing. So our job is to hand them what they need when they ask for it. There's a difference between me shoving everything in your face and going, see, you need to pay me, and me waiting for you to ask for things that you need to pay me. No adjuster doesn't want to not pay a claim. There are some of them that think they're, superwoman or Superman, and their job is to, everybody's out to cheat everybody, and they're the only ones that are honest. There's an adjuster in this thing that posts some stuff that I go, dude, if there's a reason why I'm not in corporate anymore, I'd punch you in the mouth and I'd be your manager. So like, I can't imagine how many body shops want to punch you in the mouth. But this is just what we're dealing with. So please take into account the information that you submit needs to be seen through this funnel, needs to be able to be processed through this funnel. Someone that failed an exam 5 times, a very basic exam. It's not complex. There's no math problems on the adjuster. I mean, it's just basic concepts, right? We have our body shop people pass this exam first try. Like, there's nothing special to this adjuster exam. So I guess it's a little bit more insight on how, I don't want to say desperate, that's not the right word, but finding people to do a job these days is very, very hard. And so the people you're hiring may not be your dream candidates, but they're the people that applied. And so you got to work with what you got to work with. Some of you are experiencing that in the collision space right now, for whatever positions you have. So please keep in mind who you're actually dealing with. when it comes time to write your estimates, talk on the phone, do lots of things. You're not the same. It doesn't mean you're better, but you're just not the same. And so you can't talk to them in ways that you want to be talked to, and you can't talk to them in ways of things that you understand. So just interesting. Um, I recommend occasionally visiting some of the adjuster groups to get a little insight. All right, let's close this out because, like I said, I'm just about out of coffee. This is another, there was a lot of questions. I think it was in November, first part of November, State Farm launched the pilot in 2 states for the Opus. And then they just announced this past week that they're expanding that to 4, adding 4 more states to it. These 4 states are more policy holder dense. So there's more policy count in these states. It's a way for them to ramp up and decide, well, can Opus handle the ramp up? I mean, we used to tell people all the time. I remember when I first started in claims, there was a green screen, and that we did these little green screen DOS computers, and all the claims were on it, and the whole world was advancing computers, and here we were over here with this like 1970s DOS technology. And I was like, well, why don't we get a new claim system? And they go, oh no, we've been trying to for years. But every time they would go and ask for a bid, like from IBM or whatever, at the time, the insurance that company was so large that nobody wanted to take on that project of creating a new claims or computer system for them. And you think about it, God, that's a huge undertaking. So any pilot that State Farm does, one of the things that has to be taken into account is, can this vendor handle the volume? There have been people ask me all the time, why does every insurance company use enterprise for rental? Oh, there's been times when they've tried, when other carriers or other vendors have been tried, but they just can't handle that volume and it falls flat. And enterprise can handle the volume, and they do a very, very good job of that because they're not just handling one insurance company's volume, they're handling lots of people's volume. So the ability to process volume is a special skill. It really is. So I think these 4 states that were added are strategic in that they're a higher density of policy count, and they're just going to see how Opus does. But so far, the first phase of testing went well. We said in November, a testing pilot phase is usually 4 to 6 months. We're right at the cusp of the 4-month mark when now they're expanding it, and so we'll see within the next couple of months how that volume goes, and then expect to see more rollout across it. I like Opus. I like the guys that work there. They don't always tell me what I want to hear, which is probably why I like them, right? I would much rather somebody tell me no, or explain to me realistically what's going on than feed me some sort of line. And then I had the 2 other scan companies in the industry sort of have a little meeting together in which they decided that that I was paid to do a lot of what I really wish I was. I'd have a lot more money if I was paid to do half the stuff that people think that there's somebody paying me. Like, this can't be Kristen. This can't be. There has to be somebody that pulls the strings. And then if half the stuff, if there was somebody that pulls the strings, half the crap I say and do, I wouldn't be allowed to do. So I decided to write a white paper. There some misunderstandings. I think a lot of people are, the pricing structure which State Farm has is not from Opus. Opus sold them an ADAS rules engine. Shops are going to pay per estimate to use that rules engine for a lot of reasons. I explained them in the white paper. You can download it. Over 600 people have downloaded the white paper since last week. It's free. You go in and you enter your information and you get the 3-page report from me that kind of explains what's going on. And I threw this together. Literally, there's a video of me saying, "Hey, Jason," walking he was here last week working, and me walking in there and going, "Hey, they announced this expansion of the pilot. A story broke. I think Repair Driven News wrote a story, and everybody was in there commenting about, Opus setting pricing, and that's wrong. But there is a pricing structure agreement for State Farm, but it's from another vendor, not from Opus. So I'm going to write this white paper real quick, and I'm literally writing it with my thumbs. So there, and we sent it and wanted to get it ready. There's some spelling in here, and there's some errors. Some people have been sending me some stuff already, and I'm like, I don't know, 3 pages by thumbs, and I've got like 3 or 4 typos. Sounds great. But anyway, you can get a free copy of it by just going to collisionhub.com, going into the store. It's one of the items in the store, but it's got a 0 price. So you just click it, add it to your cart, check out, and then you instantaneously get the download link if you want to read the whole story. Super excited to say that over 600 people so far have downloaded it. I'm going to write some more white papers. So as soon as I was done with this one and got it all laid out, I was like, oh, pretty damn good, right? Like maybe I start a magazine. Maybe I'll have the Collision Hub magazine just for whatever. But we wrote this white paper, put it out. I've got three more I want to do. So Jason's going to do one on ADAS calibration timing. We've got a couple of calibration reports where it says it took an hour and 30 minutes total time to do it. And what does that mean to a shop? And what does that mean for charging and whatever? We've got one coming out on materials, invoicing, and collecting. What's happened with materials, why shops can no longer use a P&M formula and be profitable. We'll have a survey coming out before we finish that white paper. And hopefully you guys will participate in that survey. And then we announced our four, I don't want to say winners because you didn't really win anything. You just signed up to do a lot of work. Through our partnerships, we test a lot of products. And we test different things from shop stools, like we had the Viper stools in here and we were testing those and working with them. And we give a lot of feedback on equipment, sandpaper, paint guns, whatever. And we've been asked to give an opinion on some safety shoes, so some steel-toed tennis shoes and work boots. And I thought, well, why have me wear them and walk around and ask out? So we made a post online about shop shoes. For most of us in the shop, we go through a pair probably every 6 months, 4 months to 6 months, we're buying a pair of shoes. So I got four people that are going to test these shoes for me. So we're gonna send them a free pair of shoes. They can choose between the tennis shoe version or the work boot version, and then they get to wear them and write back and tell me what they think. For less than $50, can we get a really quality pair of safety shoes so we meet OSHA standards? And then number two, comfort, right? So we'll let you know. But if you need us, we will be around all week. It looks like I'm about to get snowed in. So last time I got snowed in, I got bored and made a lot of videos. So look forward to that coming. And we will see you guys next Monday on Coffee Talk. And you can always reach us on the website or you can email Melanie directly. I tell everyone she's the smartest person at Collision Hub and keeps us all organized and going. And we will see you next week. Bye, guys.